The sky above the planet was a strange shade of green, with clouds that swirled like smoke over a battlefield that had not yet begun. From orbit, the invading fleet looked down at the small settlements below. They were convinced this planet would fall in days, maybe hours. It had no massive armies, no advanced weapons that the enemy could see from their ships. Just small villages, forests, and mountains. Simple humans, or so they thought. On the ground, the humans were not aware of the approaching fleet. They would go about their daily lives, fishing in small rivers, tending to crops, repairing simple machines that hummed quietly in the background. Children played near the fields, laughing, while the adults worked with a focus that spoke of hard lives. They seemed fragile, harmless, and the perfect prey for the enemy who believed in brute force over cunning. In a small command tent hidden deep within the largest forest, a human commander named Kale stood silently. He was tall, his shoulders firm, and his eyes sharp. Unlike the others who had gone about their day without worry, Kale watched the sky with careful attention. He did not panic. He did not raise alarms. The enemy was strong, yes, but they had one weakness: arrogance. They believed humans were weak, incapable of fighting back in a meaningful way. That was their first mistake. The enemy fleet slowly descended, and from the windows of their ships, generals looked down at the planet. Their voices were loud over the communication channels, full of mockery. "Look at them," one said, pointing at the villages. "Tiny settlements, tiny weapons, easy conquest." Another laughed, shaking his head. "These humans are a joke. We will crush them without even breaking a sweat." Meanwhile, in the forest below, Kale called his lieutenants together. "They think we are weak," he said, his voice calm, yet carrying authority. "That is why they will fall into our traps. We are not just fighting with weapons. We are fighting with our minds. And that is something they cannot understand." Kale's lieutenants, a mix of men and women hardened by survival in these harsh lands, nodded in agreement. They knew the people in the villages trusted them to protect everyone. They also knew the enemy was far stronger in numbers and in technology. But humans had something else: knowledge of their land, patience, and the ability to strike when least expected. By evening, the first enemy troops landed near the northern fields. They were armored, with weapons that could destroy a building in seconds. They laughed at the humans who ran to warn the villages. Some soldiers fired randomly into the forest, thinking that fear would drive the humans away. But the humans did not panic. They had already begun their preparations. Hidden among the trees, Kale's squads moved quietly. They had spent weeks preparing for this day, setting traps in places the enemy would never think to check. Spikes hidden under loose soil, nets strung between the trees, pitfalls masked by leaves. Every path the enemy could take had a surprise waiting for them. The first group of enemy soldiers walked confidently through a clearing, mocking the humans as they moved. One soldier, taller than the rest, lifted his weapon to shoot at a figure in the distance. But the figure was gone, slipping into the shadows like a ghost. Suddenly, a trap activated. The ground beneath the enemy soldiers collapsed into a pit lined with spikes. Screams filled the air. Confusion and fear spread quickly among the troops. Kale watched from a distance, his eyes scanning every movement. "Patience," he whispered. "Let them fall into every trap we have prepared. Every mistake they make will be their downfall." The enemy tried to regroup, their confidence shaken. Their generals shouted commands, trying to maintain control, but the humans were everywhere, unseen. Arrows flew from the trees, hitting targets with deadly accuracy. Explosions erupted from hidden devices, sending smoke and fire into the air. Every step the enemy took seemed to lead them deeper into danger. In one village, an elderly human named Mira watched the chaos unfold from her window. She had lived through wars before and understood the nature of fear. Her hands trembled slightly, but her eyes were sharp. "Kale has taught them well," she whispered. "They are not just fighting for survival. They are fighting for respect." The enemy's soldiers, realizing that this was no ordinary battle, began to panic. Their communications were full of panic and confusion. "Why can't we see them? Where are the humans hiding?" One soldier yelled. Another replied, "It's like the land itself is against us. We cannot move without falling into traps." Kale's squads pressed the advantage. They were not aiming to destroy everything, just enough to create chaos. They wanted the enemy to learn a lesson about underestimating humans. Each strike was calculated, precise, and unexpected. The humans moved like shadows, striking and disappearing before the enemy could react. The first day of the invasion ended with the enemy in disarray. They had suffered more losses than they expected, and their arrogance had been shattered. They looked at the small planet below with a mixture of fear and disbelief. How could such fragile beings fight back with such intelligence? Kale returned to his tent, tired but alert. He knew this was only the beginning. The enemy would regroup, but humans had already shown that they could fight differently. They did not need massive armies or advanced weapons to win. They needed strategy, courage, and the will to survive. As night fell, the forest echoed with the quiet steps of humans returning to their homes. Villagers emerged from hiding, cautiously checking the damage. Many had lost property, but their spirit remained unbroken. Children clung to their parents, but there was a sense of pride in the air. They had seen their defenders in action. They had seen humans fight not just for survival, but for dignity. Kale looked up at the stars, thinking about the battles to come. They expected easy conquest, he said softly. But we have already taught them the first lesson. The war has only begun, but they will remember forever. The enemy fleet hovered above, uncertain and wary. Their generals debated what to do next. Some wanted to retreat, ashamed of their earlier arrogance. Others wanted revenge, believing they could strike harder. But Kale knew that humans had the advantage now, the advantage of unpredictability. The enemy could never fully understand a species that fought with cunning rather than brute strength. And so, the stage was set. A war that the enemy thought would be easy had turned into a lesson in humility. The humans of this small planet had shown that even the weak could be strong if they fought smart. And Kale, with his calm eyes and quiet determination, knew that the true challenge was just beginning. Tomorrow, the enemy would return, stronger and angrier, but the humans were ready. They had learned the land, prepared their traps, and understood the value of patience. The first day of the invasion was only a hint of what was to come. The humans had taught the enemy that no one should ever underestimate them. As dawn broke over the forest, a cool wind carried the sounds of preparation. Humans sharpening weapons, checking traps, and whispering plans. Kale moved among them, giving quiet instructions, his presence steady and reassuring. Every person knew their role, and every role mattered. The enemy might have advanced technology, larger numbers, and stronger armor, but humans had something more powerful: strategy, courage, and a deep knowledge of their home. And in the first battle of this war, they had already begun to turn the tide. The unexpected turning point had arrived. What the enemy thought would be a quick victory had become a fight for survival, respect, and a reminder that humans were not as weak as they seemed. Kale smiled slightly, knowing the journey ahead would be dangerous. But he also knew one truth. Humans had a way of surviving, of striking back, and of teaching lessons that others would never forget. And this was only the beginning. The morning sun rose over the dense forest, casting long shadows on the rugged terrain below. Smoke from the previous day's skirmishes lingered in the air, twisting and curling like ghosts over the villages. The enemy thought the humans were weak, but yesterday had shown them otherwise. Their arrogance had been shattered, replaced now with caution and unease. Kale stood at the edge of a cliff, overlooking the northern valley where the first wave of enemy soldiers had landed. He scanned the terrain, his eyes tracing every ridge, every river, every patch of thick forest. He knew the enemy would come back. They always did. But this time, the humans would not wait for them to make the first move. They would strike first and strike hard. Listen carefully, Kale said to his lieutenants, who crouched around him, their faces tense but determined. They are expecting easy victory. That is our advantage. Today, we remind them that the land itself is against them. Every path, every shadow, every tree is our ally. Move like the wind, strike like a storm, and disappear before they even understand what hit them. The squad split silently into forest, each moving in perfect synchronization. No words were spoken, only gestures and nods. They were like shadows, merging with the trees, the undergrowth, the mist that clung to the valleys. Every human knew their role. Every human understood that survival depended on precision, patience, and timing. At the edge of the clearing, the first enemy patrol marched confidently, unaware of the traps that waited. They mocked the small human villages visible in the distance, certain that their numbers and technology would secure victory. One soldier laughed. "They hide in holes, but they cannot hide from us forever." His voice carried over the clearing, and it was the last thing he said before the ground beneath him shifted. A hidden pit, covered with soil and leaves, gave way. The soldier fell into it with a scream, and the others froze in shock. Before they could react, arrows rained down from the trees above. Precision, speed, and force. Humans had mastered the art of ambush. The soldiers tried to regroup, but every movement brought them into another trap. Tripwires triggering nets, smoke bombs blinding their vision, and hidden explosives shaking the ground beneath their feet. Kale watched from a ridge, his eyes sharp, noting every reaction of the enemy. "Do not overextend," he whispered. "Let them make mistakes. Every step they take is their own undoing." The humans were relentless. Small squads darted through the trees, striking, disappearing, and reappearing elsewhere. The enemy's superior armor was useless in the face of unpredictability. They tried to fire at the moving shadows, but arrows and small, handheld explosives kept them off balance. Panic started spreading. Commands were shouted. Orders conflicted. And for the first time, the enemy realized that brute strength alone could not secure victory. In the chaos, a young lieutenant named Aaron led a team to disable the enemy's communication devices. Silently, they crept along the perimeter, avoiding patrols and hidden sensors. With precise, almost surgical movements, they destroyed the equipment, cutting off the enemy from their reinforcements and their command. When the enemy tried to call for help, only silence greeted them. Meanwhile, Kale's Central Squad targeted the enemy supply lines. Small, mobile units carried lightweight explosives, planted them under carts, vehicles, and storage depots. When the charges detonated, fire and smoke engulfed the area. The soldiers panicked further, realizing that not only were they being attacked, but their resources were being destroyed before they could even fight. In one narrow gorge, a group of enemy soldiers attempted to advance through a valley. They were funneled perfectly into a kill zone prepared by Kale's team. From above, arrows flew silently, striking with deadly accuracy. Explosions shook the ground, causing rock slides that blocked any retreat. The soldiers screamed, ran, and stumbled, but the humans had foreseen every move. Every path had a trap, every corner a hidden danger. Yet, despite the chaos, the humans maintained control. They were disciplined, moving with calm and precision, striking only when it served a purpose. They did not waste energy on killing for the sake of it. They aimed to dismantle, confuse, and conquer without unnecessary exposure. The enemy general, observing from a distance, grew frustrated. "These humans, they fight like ghosts," he muttered. "Every move we make, they are already 2 steps ahead." Another officer shook his head. "This is not a normal battle. They are not weak. They are unpredictable, and that is dangerous." Back in the village, Mira, the elderly woman who had witnessed the previous day's chaos, looked out over the valley. Her eyes followed the flickering movements in the trees, the flashes of light from explosives, the arrows that flew and disappeared. She whispered softly, "They have learned the land, and they have learned to use it against those who come to take it. This is how humans survive." As the day continued, the enemy troops struggled to adapt. They tried to use heavy weapons to clear the forest, but the dense trees and hidden humans rendered them ineffective. They set fire to sections of the forest, hoping to force the humans out into the open. But the humans had anticipated this. They had created safe zones, hidden paths, and escape routes that kept them out of harm's way while the enemy's flames consumed only the empty forest floor. In one particularly daring maneuver, Erin and her squad lured a group of enemy soldiers into a narrow canyon. They had prepared small explosives on the walls above, rigged to collapse at the exact right moment. The soldiers marched into the trap, confident in their numbers, and then the walls above them gave way. Rocks tumbled, smoke filled the air, and chaos ensued. When the dust settled, only a few survived, stunned and terrified. Kale did not celebrate. He moved to another ridge, scanning for the next enemy movement. "Do not become overconfident," he said quietly. They are still dangerous, but they are learning the hard way that humans fight differently. By evening, the humans had achieved what they set out to do. The enemy forces were scattered, supplies destroyed, and their confidence shattered. They had expected an easy strike, a quick victory, and now they were exhausted, demoralized, and fearful. For the humans, it was a clear success, but they knew the fight was far from over. That night, the forest echoed with quiet whispers. Humans moved through the shadows, checking traps, tending to the wounded, and preparing for the next day. Children who had hidden during the chaos came out cautiously, eyes wide but curious. The adults shared stories of bravery, of squads that had fought silently and vanished, of traps that had turned the tide. Every person in the village understood that survival required unity, cunning, and courage. Kale gathered his lieutenants once more. "They will come back," he said, "bigger, angrier, and better prepared. But we have given them something they cannot forget. We have taught them that humans are not weak, humans are clever, and humans survive by knowing their land better than anyone else." Erin stepped forward, her face lit by the flickering fire. "Commander, they are strong, but they're afraid now. We can use this. Tomorrow, we strike again, but differently, harder, smarter, and faster." Kale nodded. "Exactly. Today was only the first strike. We showed them our strength, but tomorrow we will show them our strategy. Every battle we fight, every step they take, will be against our terms. And they will remember that humans do not fight like anyone else in the galaxy." As the night deepened, the enemy soldiers huddled in the remnants of their camps. Their generals argued, trying to find a way to recover from the human ambushes. Some wanted to retreat. Others wanted to strike harder, but none could deny the growing fear. These humans, small and seemingly simple, had outsmarted them at every turn, and that fear, more than any weapon, would haunt them in the battles to come. In the village, Mira looked up at the stars once again. "The first strike is done," she murmured, "but the war is just beginning. And we, the humans, will be ready for whatever comes next." Kale stood quietly, looking at the enemy campfires flickering in the distance. He smiled faintly, a mixture of pride and determination. "They expected an easy conquest," he whispered. "But we have taught them that humans fight in a way they cannot understand. And this is only the beginning." The first strike had been a success, but it had also set the stage for something greater. The enemy would return stronger and more determined. But humans had one advantage that no army in the galaxy could predict. They had patience, strategy, and the ability to turn even the weakest moment into a weapon. And in that quiet forest, beneath the stars, the humans of this small planet prepared for the next move. They would not wait for the enemy to strike again. They would lead the dance of war, using every shadow, every trap, and every human mind as a weapon. The first strike had been only a taste of what was to come, and the enemy would learn the hard way that humans do not fight by the rules. They fight by survival, intelligence, and cunning. The stage was set for the next battle, and when it came, the humans would be ready. The forest was alive with sound, but not the sound of daily life. Birds had gone silent, and even the wind seemed to carry a tense hush. Every shadow seemed heavier, every rustle of leaves louder. The humans were moving, silently, like ghosts. Their enemies thought they had survived the first strike, and might now feel confident. But confidence, Kale knew, was a weakness. Kale walked along the ridge with his lieutenants, studying the valley below. Smoke from the enemy's scattered camps still rose, but it was faint, almost hidden among the morning fog. He did not speak loudly. Words were unnecessary. The humans understood the plan. Today, they would not just defend, they would strike, confuse, and disorient. Today, the humans would teach guerrilla warfare at its finest. Split into squads, Kale said quietly. Each group knows the land better than any map they could have. Use it. Make them doubt every step. Make them fear the forest itself. And remember, strike hard, vanish, repeat. They cannot fight shadows. The squads melted into the forest like water into sand. Each team had a specific target. Supply lines, communication towers, patrols, and key terrain points. The humans did not rush. They moved with patience, choosing the perfect moment to strike. They knew that in guerrilla warfare, patience could kill faster than a sword. The first squad crept along a ridge overlooking a narrow canyon. Enemy soldiers were moving supplies down the valley, confident their path was secure. Kale's team had planted small explosives and hidden alarms in the rocks above. One wrong step, one loud footfall, and chaos would erupt. A human scout, barely visible behind a tree, signaled to the squad leader. A single nod, a flick of the hand, and the trap was triggered. Rocks tumbled down the canyon walls, crushing carts and blocking the path. The soldiers panicked, weapons firing blindly into the air. Some fell into hidden pits. Others were caught in nets dangling from trees. The humans, invisible as shadows, watched and calculated each movement, ensuring no collateral damage to civilians. Meanwhile, in another sector of the forest, Aaron led her squad on a mission to intercept enemy communications. They crawled through thick underbrush, avoiding patrols and sensors with uncanny precision. Every movement was deliberate, every sound controlled. By midday, they reached a key communications relay. With practiced hands, they dismantled the equipment, severing the enemy's ability to coordinate. When soldiers on the ground tried to call for backup, their voices were lost in static. The psychological impact of these actions was immediate. Enemy soldiers grew paranoid. Every rustle of leaves made them flinch. Every shadow seemed to move on its own. Confidence turned into fear, and fear made mistakes. Soldiers fired at nothing, shouted in panic, and often ran into traps set by humans who had anticipated these reactions. Kale smiled faintly from his vantage point. This was more than physical combat. It was a war of minds. Humans were teaching the enemy to fear every moment, every decision, every breath. The forest itself had become a weapon. Guided by strategy and experience, I and the village, Mira and other elders watched the movements from hidden lookouts. They saw humans darting between trees, striking quickly and vanishing. Children clung to their sides, eyes wide with both fear and awe. "This is how humans survive," Mira whispered. "Not by strength alone, but by intelligence and knowing every secret of the land." By afternoon, the enemy attempted to retaliate. They sent a large patrol to hunt down human squads, expecting a conventional fight. Instead, Kale had prepared something new: decoys and misdirection. Humans set traps that looked empty but led the enemy into ambushes farther away. Some squads created noises and movements in one area, while the main strike occurred elsewhere. The soldiers fired at shadows, ran into nets, and fell into hidden trenches. Every counterattack by the enemy only played into the humans' hands. Aaron's squad then moved to a high cliff overlooking the enemy's main camp. They planted lightweight explosives and tripwires to collapse supply tents and vehicles. By evening, a series of controlled explosions lit the horizon. Smoke and fire twisted into the sky, creating confusion and panic. Soldiers ran blindly, trying to save supplies, while humans struck from the shadows. Kale and his lieutenants moved silently through the forest, watching the chaos unfold. "Patience," Kale said. "They think they can adapt. Let them learn the hard way. Each mistake teaches them something they cannot forget." The enemy generals were in a state of disbelief. "How can such small numbers cause this much destruction?" one shouted. "They move like shadows, strike like lightning, and vanish without a trace." Another replied, "They know the land better than we do. We cannot predict them. We are fighting not just humans, but the forest itself." As night fell, Kale gathered the squads in a hidden valley. They had inflicted massive damage on enemy troops, destroyed supplies, and disabled communications, all without facing the full might of the enemy. Yet, Kale remained calm. "Today we taught them the first lesson in fear," he said. "Tomorrow we push further. Every trap, every strike, every move will remind them that humans fight differently." The squads dispersed again to secure their positions, but Kale's mind was already planning the next day. Guerrilla warfare was not just about attack. It was about control. By dictating where and when the enemy could move, humans turned every inch of their land into a weapon. In the enemy camp, soldiers whispered rumors. Some swore they had seen humans vanish into thin air. Others claimed the forest was alive, guiding the humans. Fear spread faster than fire. Confidence was gone. And without confidence, soldiers were easy to manipulate. Back in the village, Mira watched children play cautiously, their curiosity returning despite the danger. The adults shared news of successful strikes, small victories that kept morale high. Humans were learning to fight not just for survival, but for dominance over their own land. Kale walked through the valley under the cover of darkness. Every squad had reported in, every trap reset or improved, and every position secured. They expected a conventional fight, he whispered to himself. But humans do not fight conventionally. They fight with cunning, patience, and the will to survive. And that is something they cannot prepare for. Suddenly, a distant explosion echoed through the forest. Not human. The enemy had sent a small unit to probe, perhaps to find weaknesses or recover supplies. Kale smiled faintly. It was perfect. The humans had prepared a new trap for the next day, something the enemy could not imagine. And when the enemy fell into it, their fear would deepen. By midnight, the forest was quiet. Only the humans moved, checking traps, monitoring patrols, and planning for the next strike. Each team knew that guerrilla warfare was as much about patience as aggression. They were preparing for a long war, one step at a time. Kale looked at the stars through the canopy. They expected easy conquest, he said quietly. But every step they take will remind them that humans fight in ways they cannot understand. And by the time this battle ends, they will remember forever. The first and second strikes had shattered the enemy's confidence, but Kale knew the most critical part was yet to come. Guerrilla tactics were only the beginning. Humans had learned that war was not about numbers or weapons. It was about strategy, intelligence, and exploiting every weakness of the opponent. Tomorrow, Kale thought, would bring new challenges, but the humans were ready. Every shadow was an ally, every trap a lesson, and every squad a reminder that the enemy had underestimated the one thing humans never lost, their cunning. And so, under the quiet night sky, the humans of the small planet prepared for the next stage of their war. Guerrilla warfare had begun, and the enemy was already losing control. But the humans knew that the fight was far from over. Each battle would test their minds, their patience, and their courage. And in every test, they would emerge stronger, smarter, and more dangerous than the enemy could ever imagine. The forest whispered secrets that only humans could hear. And the enemy would learn the hard way that nothing about humans was ordinary, predictable, or weak. Guerrilla tactics were not just a method, they were a philosophy, and the humans had already mastered it. The stage was set, the shadows were ready, and the enemy, now paranoid and confused, had no idea what was coming next. The morning mist hung thick over the forest, hiding everything from the naked eye. From above, the enemy fleet looked down with frustration. Days of ambushes, traps, and guerrilla strikes had shaken their confidence. Their soldiers whispered rumors of humans who vanished into shadows, a forest that seemed alive, and of traps waiting at every step. Some said it was impossible, small humans causing such chaos. Kale stood on a ridge overlooking the valley. His eyes were sharp, scanning enemy movements. He could see the nervous soldiers moving cautiously, unsure where the next trap lay. He had anticipated their panic. Today would be the turning point. The day when humans would show that intelligence and strategy could defeat brute force in a way the galaxy would never forget. Today, Kale whispered to his lieutenants, we give them a battle they cannot recover from. Every step they take, every plan they make, will be ours to control. They believe they can adapt. They cannot. Today we strike decisively. The humans moved silently through the forest, their squad splitting into multiple sectors. Each team had a specific target. The enemy supply lines, their command posts, and key troop formations. Every trap was prepared in advance. Every ambush rehearsed. Unlike before, today's plan relied on the enemy making predictable errors. Arrogant errors born from overconfidence. In the northern valley, a large enemy troop formation advanced cautiously. They had learned to avoid obvious traps, but Kale had prepared something new, misdirection. Sounds were created in one direction, using tripwires and wind-activated noise devices. Fake human silhouettes moved through the trees, leading the enemy deeper into a valley rig with hidden explosives and pitfalls. One by one, the enemy soldiers fell into the traps. Explosions erupted, smoke filled the air, and panic spread like wildfire. Soldiers tried to regroup, but every path they took was under surveillance. Every shadow might hold a human ready to strike. Arrows rained silently from the trees, taking down the strongest soldiers before they even knew what hit them. Kale watched from a high ridge, calm but focused. "Do not stop," he murmured. "Let them fall into every trap. Their panic will become their weapon." Meanwhile, Aaron's squad carried out the most daring strike of the campaign. They moved through underground tunnels, known only to humans, and emerged behind the enemy's command post. With controlled precision, they planted explosives and sabotaged communication arrays. When the charges detonated, the enemy generals were thrown into chaos. Commands were lost, coordination crumbled, and the soldiers on the field became disorganized. The enemy commander, a large and imposing figure, tried to regain control. "Form ranks. Hold the line," he shouted, but his voice was drowned by explosions and screams. Soldiers ran blindly, falling into pits, caught in nets, and struck from hidden vantage points. Every movement they made was anticipated. Every escape route had been blocked. In the Central Valley, a human squad had orchestrated a perfect ambush. The enemy's strongest unit, armored and confident, marched into a narrow gorge. Humans triggered small landslides from above, sending rocks crashing into the soldiers. Explosions detonated nearby, causing chaos and confusion. Some soldiers were trapped under debris. Others fell into hidden pits. The survivors scattered. Too afraid to regroup, their confidence shattered. Kale's lieutenants moved between squads, coordinating attacks and ensuring no human was exposed. Every human knew that the forest, the mountains, and even the rivers were allies. The enemy was now fighting not just soldiers, but the land itself. Every step, every decision, every movement played into the human strategy. The enemy began to panic. Some tried to retreat, but the paths were blocked by traps and human squads. Others tried to call for reinforcements, but communications were down. Fear was spreading faster than fire. The arrogance of the first day was gone. In its place was confusion, chaos, and terror. Kale walked calmly through the forest, observing squads and adjusting strategies. "Do not give them a single advantage," he instructed. "Every trap, every ambush, every distraction is part of a larger plan. We do not just fight. We control the battle, the terrain, and their minds." In one daring maneuver, Aaron's squad infiltrated the enemy's central camp. Using smoke bombs and night vision, they silently took down sentries and secured strategic positions. When the main enemy units moved to investigate, they found themselves surrounded on three sides. Confusion and panic erupted into chaos. Soldiers fired blindly. Some were captured, others fled. By the time the smoke cleared, the humans had won complete control of the camp, without any major casualties on their side. The psychological impact was devastating. The enemy soldiers began to question every movement, every shadow, every sound. Confidence turned into fear, and fear led to mistakes. They were no longer a disciplined army. They were a scattering mob, hunted by invisible foes who knew every secret of the land. Mira and the villagers watched from hidden lookouts. The elders whispered in awe. "This is more than skill," Mira said. "This is intelligence, strategy, and the spirit of survival. Humans are not weak. They are unstoppable when they fight together and know their home." By dusk, the humans had inflicted a massive blow to the enemy. Troops scattered, supplies destroyed, command disrupted. The battlefield was littered with wreckage. Yet not a single human life had been carelessly risked. Kale knew that this was more than victory. It was a lesson. The enemy would remember it, fear it, and respect it. The enemy generals met in disarray, arguing over what to do next. Some wanted to retreat, humiliated. Others insisted on revenge, but they lacked coordination. "We underestimated them," one said bitterly. "We thought humans were weak, predictable. They are neither, and they are everywhere, even where we cannot see." Kale gathered his lieutenants for a final briefing of the day. "Today we turn the tide," he said. "We showed them that humans are not simple, small, or weak. We showed them that strategy, patience, and knowledge of the land are more powerful than any weapon they can bring. But this is not the end. This is only the beginning. The war continues tomorrow, and every day after that, they will face humans on our terms." Night fell, and the forest settled into a quiet that was almost eerie. Humans moved silently among traps and patrol points, checking positions, healing minor injuries, and resetting ambushes. Each squad knew that victory was temporary. The next day could bring new challenges. But for now, they had achieved what no one thought possible. A decisive, intelligent strike that shattered the enemy's confidence and forced them to fight on unfamiliar terms. Kale walked to a small clearing and looked at the stars. They expected easy conquest, he said quietly. But we have changed the game. Today, they learned that humans do not fight like anyone else in the galaxy. And when the next wave comes, they will remember this day and dread it. The humans of the planet had turned the tide of the war. They had taken chaos and fear, mixed it with strategy and courage, and created a battlefield where only the clever could survive. The enemy had underestimated them, and now they were paying the price. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, stronger enemy units, and more dangerous attacks. But the humans were ready. They had learned to control the battlefield, manipulate the enemy's mind, and fight not with numbers alone, but with intelligence, courage, and the advantage of knowing their home better than anyone else. The forest whispered with anticipation. Shadows moved with purpose. Traps were set, squads prepared, and the humans waited calmly for the next stage of the war. The turning point had arrived. The enemy had been humiliated, defeated in strategy, and shown the true strength of human cunning. And Kale knew, deep in his heart, that the humans would continue to fight, strike, and survive in ways the enemy could never predict. The battle was not over, but the turning point had been won, and the humans had proven that the mind, patience, and strategy could conquer even the strongest foe. The dawn broke slowly over the forest, painting the world in shades of gold and green. Mist curled along the valleys like living fingers, hiding secrets, concealing movement. The enemy, scattered and demoralized from previous battles, believed that they had seen the worst. But Kale knew the day would teach them the final lesson, the lesson they would never forget. Humans moved silently, as they always did. Today, they did not merely defend or ambush. They were on the offensive. Every squad knew their role. Every trap was part of a larger plan. Kale's eyes scanned the forest from a high ridge. Today, we do not just fight, he said to his lieutenants. Today, we end their arrogance. We show them the truth. Humans do not bow. Humans do not fear. And humans fight to survive and to win. In the valley below, enemy troops gathered in the open, hoping to regain control. They were stronger in numbers, better armed, but their confidence had been shattered. They moved cautiously, wary of ambushes, but unaware of the greatest traps that awaited them. Kale smiled faintly. The enemy believed they were preparing to attack humans. They did not realize they were marching into a battlefield the humans had already mastered. Aaron led the first squad along a hidden ridge. They observed enemy movements, studying their formations, noting weaknesses. Every shadow, every bend in the path, every ridge became a potential strike point. Aaron signaled to her team, and they prepared for the first blow. Unlike before, this attack was coordinated on multiple fronts. Frontal feints, side ambushes, and rear strikes. The enemy had no way to anticipate it. Suddenly, arrows and small explosives erupted from the trees. Chaos spread instantly. The enemy tried to regroup, but Kale's teams had cut off retreat paths. Smoke filled the air, blinding soldiers. Explosions shook the ground, sending debris and fear in every direction. Panic spread faster than the humans could strike. But every strike was deliberate. No soldier was left a chance. In the central valley, humans led a daring trap. A large enemy group advanced into a narrow gorge, confident that they had learned from previous mistakes. But the gorge had been prepared with precision. Hidden explosives lined the cliff walls, ready to collapse with a single trigger. Nets and spikes lay concealed along the ground, ready to trap anyone who tried to flee. The soldiers marched forward, and the humans waited. A small, silent signal, and the trap was triggered. Explosions roared as the cliffs collapsed, rocks tumbling down and crushing vehicles. Nets ensnared soldiers, pinning them helpless. The enemy screamed, their confidence gone, replaced entirely by fear. They had never seen anything like it. Kale moved along the ridge, his eyes calm. "Do not let them recover," he whispered. "Strike again. Let every step remind them that humans are not weak. Humans are not predictable, and humans do not forgive arrogance. Meanwhile, Aaron's squad infiltrated the enemy camp from the rear. They moved like shadows, taking out sentries silently, planting charges, and dismantling remaining communication devices. When the main enemy troops turned to retaliate, they found themselves trapped between human squads on all sides. Confusion, chaos, and panic took over. The enemy commander's voice was drowned by the sound of human precision and controlled destruction. The villagers, hidden in safe locations, watched silently. Mira, the elderly woman who had observed every battle, whispered to herself, "They have done it. The humans have become more than fighters. They are legends. Every move they make, every shadow they hide in, is a story the enemy will tell in fear for years." The battle continued, but now the humans controlled every aspect. The forest, the terrain, the enemy's movements. All were instruments of human strategy. Soldiers tried to regroup, but traps and ambushes made every effort futile. Panic spread like wildfire. Some surrendered, realizing their defeat. Others tried to flee, only to find their paths blocked by hidden squads or pit traps. Kale called his lieutenants together mid-battle. "Remember," he said, "today is not about revenge or destruction. It is about teaching a lesson. Every soldier who survives will remember the cost of underestimating humans. Every commander will fear the day they meet us. Let them learn it well." In a daring move, Aaron led a small squad capture the enemy commander. They moved through the shadows, silently taking down any soldiers in their path. The commander, realizing he was surrounded, attempted to fight, but the humans were too precise, too calculated. Within moments, he was immobilized, his arrogance shattered. Kale approached the captured commander calmly. "You expected easy conquest," he said, his voice steady and unyielding. "But you have learned the first and final lesson. Humans fight differently. Humans survive, and humans do not forget." The enemy troops watched in disbelief as their commander was captured without a fight. Their morale collapsed completely. Some surrendered immediately. Others fled in panic, leaving weapons and supplies behind. The battlefield, once chaotic and uncertain, now belonged entirely to humans. As the sun began to set, the humans stood victorious. The forest echoed with quiet celebration. Villagers emerged from hiding, running to their defenders. Children hugged the soldiers who had protected them. Mira wept quietly, overwhelmed by pride. The humans had not only defended their home, they had turned the entire battle into a story of courage, intelligence, and unity. Kale looked over the battlefield, noting the destroyed vehicles, captured weapons, and scattered enemy forces. But he did not smile in triumph. His expression was calm, focused. "Today, we taught them a lesson," he said softly. "A lesson they will never forget. But we must remain vigilant. They may return, stronger or in greater numbers. But humans will be ready. Humans always adapt. Humans always survive." That night, the forest was alive with quiet preparation. Humans moved to secure positions, heal the wounded, and check every trap. Every squad knew that victory was not permanent. It was earned through vigilance and intelligence. Yet, there was a sense of pride, a quiet satisfaction that they had survived against overwhelming odds. Kale walked through the forest, observing squads and villagers alike. The humans had proven that they could fight against impossible odds, that strategy and intelligence could triumph over brute force. And more importantly, they had shown that humans would not bow to arrogance, oppression, or fear. The captured enemy commander was placed on a guard, unable to deny the lesson he had learned. The humans did not execute him. They did not need to. The humiliation and defeat he had suffered would haunt him forever. It was a silent but powerful message. Humans fight differently, and they fight to win. Mira gathered the children and elders. "Remember this day," she said softly. "Remember how humans fought not just with weapons, but with courage, intelligence, and unity. Never forget that our strength comes not from size or numbers, but from our hearts and minds." Kale watched from a ridge as the sun dipped below the horizon. The battlefield was quiet, but the lessons were loud. Humans had survived, adapted, and conquered. The enemy had learned that underestimating humans was a mistake that would cost them dearly. And in that quiet golden forest, a powerful truth became clear. Humans fight not like anyone else in the galaxy. They fight with strategy, patience, courage, and intelligence. And when the battle is over, they do not simply survive. They teach a lesson. Kale turned to his lieutenants. They will remember this day, he said, not as a loss, but as the moment they realize humans are not to be underestimated. And as long as humans stand together, as long as we fight smart and with courage, we will always win. The forest settled into the quiet of night. Shadows moved. Traps remained ready, and humans prepared for whatever the future might bring. The enemy had been defeated decisively, and the lesson had been learned. But Kale knew that vigilance was the key to survival. Humans would always be ready, always be clever, and always fight differently. The final lesson was clear. Humans do not bow, humans do not fear, and humans fight to win. And the galaxy would never forget it.